Hello, welcome back to another video. We have another voiceover video today, and I'm going to be talking about some things. First off, as you can see, yes, FireAlpaca is now gone. I know, it's very sad, but the reason why is that I tried to open Parallels again, and it just was not working for me. So now we're back to trying to get used to new programs and things like that. Today I'm actually going to be comparing two programs that I tried. Right now, this is FireAlpaca that I'm using, and later down the video, you will see me using Krita. I'm going to be going through the pros and cons of both of them, so yeah, let's get started. Since we're watching a FireAlpaca video, I'm going to be talking about FireAlpaca right now. I'm just going to be going over the basic pros and cons. Hi, this is me editing this. I just wanted to say that these pros and cons are not specific to everybody. These pros and cons were just specific to me, so that does not mean if I had a bad time, you will have a bad time. So yeah, don't hate me. Some of my general first things that I noticed was it's a very simple layout. You can see everything very clearly, everything is pretty obvious. One of my favorite things that was in this was in the top right corner. I'll put a little video up of me using it in a second. You could zoom it in and move it around. It's kind of hard to explain, but you'll see right now. So yeah, that's what I mean. That was one of my favorite things that I like to use, because sometimes using little scrolly things on the side, yes, they're helpful, but it can be easier. Another pro is there are tons of different brushes, which I thought were super cool. One of my favorite ones was the analog. You'll see it's the second one in the list. It was one of my favorites. I used it to do my sketch. Now moving on to some of the cons. It didn't have a blur tool, but obviously that's not FireAlpaca's fault. That is one of the main reasons why I continued to use FireAlpaca rather than any other drawing software. My biggest con out of every single thing was the selection. The selection was so hard and difficult to use. I didn't know how to select more than one thing at a time, and when I needed to select more than one thing at a time, I'd have to draw it in, and it wasn't as perfect. So that was a really big bummer. I wish that it had been easier to use. Another con is that yes, there are a lot of brushes, but a lot of them are kind of useless. I'll put up some of them on the screen right now. It's like they're super cool, but I could not think of a single way that I would actually use them in a drawing. My final con, which is honestly, this doesn't bother me at all, but I'm just going to count it as a con. There was actually an ad at the beginning when you open it up. It's like you can immediately cancel out of it. You don't have to watch anything. But I thought that was kind of weird coming from a drawing software. I've never actually had a drawing software that's done that. So yeah, now I'm just going to be kind of talking about how it was to actually draw this. In the drawing, I decided to draw Gray Stripe and the FireAlpaca mascot, which I love their mascot so much. Overall, it was actually not too bad. Everything was pretty good until we got up to the shading, just because I tried to do my super detailed shading, and the blur tool is a really big part of that. So that was interesting. Also, there was no eraser that was more of a fuzzy airbrush type texture, which was a little bit difficult for me to use. But it was mainly just not having the blur tool, which made it super difficult. You also couldn't compress a folder into one layer on its own. But other than that, I actually do think that this worked really well, and for anyone who does more cartoony type art, I think this would be a really good software for you to use. So yeah, you guys can just listen to the music for the rest of the time, and then I'll start talking about Krita. Alright, now let's talk about Krita. Once again, I'm going to be talking about my general pros and cons of the software and my drawing experience. Once again, these are not going to be specific to everybody, this is just specific to me. Number one, the first thing was there are tons of brushes, and most of them were actually more useful than the ones in FireAlpaca, which I thought were super cool. There was also another brush that was very similar to the last one, that was the analog brush, and I really love using that kind of brush for a sketch. Another thing that I thought was super cool, which I've actually never seen in a drawing software before, was if you were to right click on your mouse or just click on the little buttons on the side of the pen, which is what I did, it would pull up this little palette, and you could see, you could choose your color there, and you could also choose your brushes by putting it into a certain tab. You could choose certain brushes on the left-hand side and put it into there, so I could put it my favorites, so I could have all of my favorite brushes and things on that tab, and when I needed them I could just right click on it, and then boom, it would work. I thought that that was super useful when drawing. My third pro is that there was actually technically a blur tool. It was not as smooth as it was inside, but it did technically work. It looked like a little Q-tip, which I thought was kind of cute. It was kind of like a mix between if you had seen a smudge tool and the blur tool, but I still think it worked really well for my specific type of shading. Another pro was the selection was so much easier to use than the one in FireAlpaca. At first when I tried selecting things, it only selected one thing at a time, but it was very easy to go into settings, and there were a bunch of different settings options to make sure that that didn't happen. Another thing about the selection that I liked was you could choose you can add a growth pixel, so that if you were to select something and it didn't fill it in all the way, you could add another pixel bigger than what you selected, so that it would make sure everything was filled in nice and evenly. You can still kind of see problems with that on my drawing, but that was my fault because I didn't switch that with the first layer that everything else was put on. Are you kidding me? Okay, that scared me. I don't know if you just heard that. As I was saying before I was rudely interrupted, you could see a little line in between my drawing and the layer, and that was because I had messed up the first layer and I couldn't really change it now. So, I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but in the future, I will be able to fix that next time I make that mistake. One of my favorite things about this was my ability to be able to zoom and move the canvas around with my trackpad. So for those of you who use tablets to draw, I think we all kind of use the same thing. We'll have our right hand on the tablet and our left hand is hovering over Command or Control Z. Or if you're left-handed, of course, your left hand would then be on the tablet and your right hand would be hovering over Control whatever. And since my left hand is already there, I could use my left hand to scroll around and turn the canvas with my fingers, which I thought was really nice. So you can see me turning the canvas a lot more than I normally would if I were doing a normal drawing. Now let's move into the cons. I actually have very few cons for this. I only have two. But the first one is I still do not know how to add a clipping layer, and I think that that's a very important thing you should be able to have. I tried it and I just could not figure out how to do it. I thought I could, and then it just didn't work. And my last con would be that when you change the brush size, you can't actually see how big it is on the screen, so that did make it a little bit difficult, so you kind of have to keep on changing it until you can actually see it. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about Krita and FireAlpaca. When it came to reviewing them both, I think in the future I will continue to use Krita rather than FireAlpaca. Krita helped me for more of the art that I'm into, and hopefully it will be easy also for when I try to do animations and things. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed this little video that I made. And yeah, hope to see some animations and stuff in the future. See ya!